everyone. My name is Carrie Doyle. I'm the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Compliance here at NC State. And what that means is that I supervise a staff who tries to make sure that all of our coaches, all of our student athletes, all of our boosters, all of our fans, all of our alumni, all of our local merchants understand NCAA rules and understand how they apply. So I'm here this morning to talk to you about NCAA rules as well as some violations. So this is kind of an overview of what we do in compliance. We educate everybody. We provide interpretations with regard to the rules. I brought an NCAA manual this morning because I wanted. Can you open that up?
Sure.
It's got the cellophane on it. It might take me 5 minutes to open it up. I wanted you to be able to kind of pass that around and see the rules that we are responsible for interpreting every single day. One would think that with a rule book of 400 pages that you actually, that's actually black and white, and it's understandable, and everyone should be able to understand what the rules are and follow them. And that's about 180 degrees different than where we are today. The coaches, student athletes, staff, they come in our office probably 15, 20 times a day, not the same person, but we have a variety of people come in our offices asking questions about how a particular rule applies. And that's where we are in kind of our NCAA land, because it's not always logical, it's not always as clear as you would want it to be. For example, if you're driving down the road and you're coming to a light, a stoplight, and it turns yellow, you've got to make a decision about whether you step on the gas to get through the yellow or whether you stop. And so let's say, for example, you decide not to stop and you go through, but the light turns red before you get through it. And so you're driving through it, you're seeing the red light, you know you violated the law. In our NCAA world, what that would mean is that once you got home, you would make a phone call or you would send an email to your compliance person. And you would say, you know what, I just violated this rule. And so it's very different from normal life. We seek waivers from the NCAA or the ACC conference when appropriate, all kinds of waivers that we do. We do academic waivers, whether it's satisfactory progress waivers, whether it's not enrolled in 12 credit hours at the beginning of the term, whether it's I've missed a term and I'm using a missed term exception. There's all kinds of exceptions and waivers that are in that manual. And then we monitor to make sure that our coaches and our student athletes and our staff are actually applying the rules properly and following the rules. We've got a whole software system called ARMS, and we monitor all of our phone calls that our coaches make. We monitor all their text messages that they make. If in fact they're contacting prospects before the right time for them to contact prospects, it would be a violation. And there's a penalty for that violation. If they're sending printed recruiting materials prior to a particular date, that's a violation. And so these rules are very, very, very specific, and they don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. Not all the time anyway. And then, if in fact we think that a coach or a student athlete or a booster or a local merchant has violated NCAA rules, we're responsible for investigating those possible violations. And then if we determine that a violation has occurred, we send a report to the NCAA detailing what it is that went wrong and whatever systems we're putting in place to try to prevent it from happening again. These are kind of key areas of our responsibility and collaboration with the university and with ASPA. Sports wagering, playing and practice seasons, there are rules that actually specify and limit the ways in which student athletes can be involved in their sport. So 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week, and we monitor those hours in ARMS as well. The coaches enter the data, but the student athletes verify that the data is correct. Drug testing, the NCAA does drug testing, NC State does drug testing, and there are protocols and penalties for positive tests. Coaching limitations, there are limitations to the number of coaches you can have for each sport. and what those people can do, their duties, and what it is that they can do per NCAA rules. So a manager can't do what an assistant coach can do. An undergraduate assistant coach can't do what a head coach can do, for example. Eligibility, there's initial eligibility when freshmen are coming in, there's continuing eligibility when you're already past your freshman year, and then there's transfer eligibility to transfer from one institution to another. Permissible and non-permissible benefits, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Amateurism is that whole area of NCAA rules that has to do with student athletes getting money or making money off of their athletics, skill, or reputation. Right now, with the Olympics going on, you're probably reading some articles about whether it's wrestlers or swimmers. You know, if they win the gold medal, they're making $250,000 or $100,000. These are exceptions to the amateurism rule in the manual. Student Assistance Fund is a fund that we get from the NCAA, and that fund allows us to provide student athletes with direct benefits for things that they need. So whether it's clothing, whether it's transportation, whether it's medical supplies, whatever it is that they need. It's not a lot, it's only about $1,000 a year, but it does provide them with the opportunity to purchase the things that they need throughout the school year. That fund was set up in criticism to some student athletes, many years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, saying, I'm on a full scholarship, but I don't have enough money to go out and buy pizza, or I don't have enough money to go do my wash. And so this fund was set up to provide them with benefits on top of a scholarship for things that they might need to do and pay for. Recruiting is a huge area, and it's highly regulated by the NCAA as well as ARMS. And the waivers I talked about, financial aid and scholarships, has to do with how much money we provide to our student athletes as a percentage of a full scholarship. So there are some sports that are called headcount sports, and they get full scholarships or zero. So it's an all or nothing kind of thing. And then there are other sports, like all of our Olympic sports, that are called equivalency sports, and they get a variety of percentages. So they might get 25% of a full scholarship or 50% of a full scholarship. And there's a whole bylaw 15 in the manual, that talks about how to create those percentages. It's not as straightforward as one would think or hope. So why am I here? Why do we do this presentation? Well, we do it to prevent you from doing something that results in a violation of NCAA rules. A violation would require a student athlete to be declared ineligible by the institution, and then we seek reinstatement through the NCAA. There is case precedent for the NCAA to rely upon when they're making a decision about what penalty ought to be imposed on the student athlete. I used to work for the NCAA for 12 years, from 1987 to 1999. And for the first 7 of those years, I worked as an investigator. And so we would go out and try to figure out what the facts were with regard to whether a violation had occurred or not, with regard to an institution or a student athlete. And then for the last 5 years, I was the director of student athlete reinstatement, which means that I supervised the staff of folks who actually made these kinds of decisions. So when an institution declared someone ineligible, sought reinstatement through the NCAA, it was that staff, the student athlete reinstatement staff, that decided what penalty should be imposed on the student athlete for that particular violation. A violation would require forfeiture contests or maybe championships if a team got that far after a student athlete competes after becoming ineligible due to their involvement in academic fraud or extra benefits or involvement with agents. There could be penalties imposed by the NCAA that could hurt current teams or future teams. Generally speaking, the NCAA, when they penalize, they're penalizing the current team or the future team. And sometimes those people who are on the future team were never involved in the violation to begin with. And so it feels really, really unfair. And then, of course, embarrassment for you, the teams that you're involved with, student athletes that you're involved in, the athletics department, as well as the university. This slide and the next one or two slides have to do with some examples of academic fraud violations. that were major cases with the NCAA. Florida State, back in 2009, a tutor, an academic advisor, and a learning specialist all gave student athletes answers and assisted with online tests. They wrote papers and even completed a quiz. There were over 60 student athletes involved in over 10 sports. At Purdue, the assistant coach admitted to conducting research and reading a book in an effort to assist a women's basketball student athlete with a paper. The former assistant coach admitted to typing, correcting, and making what he considered to be non-substantive revisions. The NCAA didn't agree with that statement and found that he had made substantive revisions. East Carolina, there was academic fraud by 4 baseball student athletes as well as a women's tennis student athlete. This women's tennis student athlete also worked as a tutor in the English department, and the tutor wrote 8 papers for one student athlete and 5 papers plus she put together a PowerPoint presentation for another. And then the student athletes represented the institution and competed while ineligible. UNC in March 2012, this tutor, her name was Jennifer Wiley, was charged with unethical conduct for refusing to be interviewed by the NCAA. She provided extra benefits to students and provided improper academic assistance. She wrote portions of papers for student athletes, gave 142 hours of free tutoring services, and paid nearly $2,000 of players' personal expenses that she received, the money she received from an agent. With regard to extra benefits, let me go back and say one more thing about Jennifer Wiley. This case was in 2012, and I still remember her name. There are lots of people that still remember her name because, and I don't know if you read the NNO or watch, the TV news in the evening, but her name and her face and her photograph was everywhere for, boy, about 2 years. And if you can imagine a newspaper article for the NNO, the News and Observer, where your front page, top of the fold with a photograph, and your name is in headlines, that's a pretty embarrassing thing. And I know you're probably sitting here thinking, well, that's not me. I'm not doing that. But my sense is that Jennifer Wiley probably thought the same thing. She was probably sitting in an orientation session, an education session, not unlike this one, because I know they do those at UNC. And she was probably thinking, yeah, I'm just going to do the best job I can. But the fact of the matter is that she became very close with her student athletes and wanted to help them. And of course, this is not the help that we want you folks to provide our student athletes. We want you to provide assistance that's in accordance with the instructions that you get from the folks here at ASPA, because if you go beyond that, it's likely that you're violating NCAA rules and you're walking down a path that you may not be anticipating. Because I'm sure Jennifer Wiley was not anticipating that she would essentially live in infamy, and she's going to be a part of these kinds of presentations at universities all across the nation for many years to come. So this is what we're really trying to avoid. Extra benefits are benefits that are provided to student athletes by someone who works at the university or by a booster, and they're benefits that are not specifically detailed in the NCAA manual as being permissible. So, there's a page or two with regard to what's permissible from the NCAA's perspective, and then there's a whole host of interpretations. But generally speaking, this is a small universe of benefits that can be provided to student athletes. Everything else is impermissible. This means that you can't provide cash or discounts or a loan of money, game tickets, services, whether it's really small stuff. Maybe it's dry cleaning, maybe it's a manicure, maybe it's the use of your car. You're thinking, that's not a big deal. Credit card, use of your credit card, borrowing your credit card, using your cell phone, or really any other tangible benefit. we had a situation a couple of years ago in which a former player provided one of our current players with the use of his car for a couple of weeks. His car, the student athlete's car, was in the shop. He had a couple other cars. This is no big deal, right? I mean, we're friends. We know each other. This is not a big deal. And it turned out to cost the student athlete about $500 of repayment to a charity of his choice, and he had to sit the first 3 games of the season. So essentially, don't provide student athletes with any tangible benefit. And then don't get involved with student athletes with regard to their game tickets. Don't pay them for their game tickets, or don't accept free tickets from them. That puts you in a situation where, you know, I'm not saying they would expect a quid pro quo, but it does create a situation where they're doing a favor for you, and you know, now they want something in return. It's not unlike some of the situations we deal with student athletes when we talk to them about agents and runners, right? And there are some student athletes who get involved with individuals on campus who may have gambling interests. They don't know. Or they may get involved with someone who has an interest with an agent. Now, this is what Jennifer Wiley was. An agent actually had kind of befriended her and was providing her with money so that she could pass it on to the student athletes. So when the student athletes exhaust their eligibility, or if the agent thinks their time is up and he wants them to go pro, the agent's going to say, I need for you to go pro now because I've given you all these benefits. And he's going to say, well, I didn't get them from you, I got them from Jennifer Wiley. And he's going to say, I don't care. You're my guy. I own you. And I need for you to declare this year. And now the student athlete's stuck because the agent has him under his thumb. Because the agent's going to say, well, I'm going to tell the newspaper that you accepted thousands of dollars from me. And they're going to declare you ineligible, and you're going to be ineligible for NCAA play anyway. So be careful of the environment in which you're in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't provide things to student athletes, and be careful and aware of the people around you, because there are people around you that are interested in using you for purposes other than what you're here for. Some additional examples of extra benefits. We've gone back and, for this presentation, done a review of, there's thousands of cases having to do with extra benefits provided to student athletes. But some of the ones that I think are probably most applicable to you folks in terms of what you might provide. So you might provide a student athlete with a place to stay. If their roommate is making them crazy and that they've got to get some sleep and they've got to have quiet time to study or do some work, you might provide them with a place to stay. Or you might provide them with transportation. You live in Asheville, you're tutoring a student athlete who lives in Asheville, he needs to get home, she needs to get home, and you're like, hey, well, you pay me for gas. I'm sure that's appropriate and proper and within NCAA rules. I'll give you a ride to Asheville and back as long as you pay for the gas. How's that sound? That would be a violation. So local transportation is okay, but beyond that, it's not. Loaning them money, typing papers, providing them with improper academic assistance. Folks here at ASPA will provide you with information with regard to what that looks like. Free use of any personal property, whether it's cars or boats or motorcycles or scooters or parents' vacation homes. And then, of course, free or discounted services, whether it's haircuts or oil changes or dry cleaning. Now, if there's a coupon that's available to the general public and it's 50% off a haircut at a particular place, that's something that student athletes can take advantage of. But if it's a discount that you've obtained because of your loyalty with a particular company or store, that wouldn't be something that you can provide them. And then, of course, don't provide them with gifts for birthdays or holidays or graduation. That gifts connotate a type of relationship that is beyond what you should be establishing with our student athletes. This is a professional relationship, right? Professors, faculty that you have, they're not providing you with birthday gifts, right? And it's the same type of relationship. This is a professional student relationship. And I know how easy it is when you're meeting with people one-on-one to establish a rapport and establish a relationship. Make sure that you're creating that boundary where your relationship is appropriate and within appropriate NCAA rules as well as university rules and ASPA rules as well. And then our expectations, of course, is that you're going to comply with all NCAA, NC State regulations, and all provisions in the mentor-tutor handbook and all of the other guidelines that ASPA provides to you. I know, I say this every single year, and at least, and it applies to me too, where you're in the App Store and you want to download an app, or you want to get on a website and they make you agree or disagree to their policies and procedures, and you're annoyed because you want to just get it already, and so you click OK, and you don't read it. I don't read it, but this tutor contract that you're signing, that is not this. That tutor contract is important for you to read. There are some things in your life that are going to be important for you to read. Mortgage papers, important for you to read. Contracts that you're signing to be employed, those are important for you to read. This tutor contract, that's important for you to read. I don't know how many people are in here right now, maybe 30 people, 35 people. My guess is that one or two of you will not be here by the end of the term. And the reason is because you've broken that contract. And so it's important for you to know what's in that contract, and if you have any questions, to ask. And even after you sign that tutor contract, you're going to have questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I know I'm scaring the crap out of you right now. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because if you don't know the answer to a question and you don't ask the question, that's bad, because then you don't know whether you're doing the right thing or not. But if you ask the question, you get the answer, then you can go do the right thing. And that is a nice segue into the next bullet point, which is we want to